Hello, I'm Sabrina Monarch, and today I'm presenting on combining evolutionary astrology with the law of attraction teachings. And I actually started practicing law of attraction myself after learning evolutionary astrology. I think I had heard of like The Secret in high school, but I didn't really look into it further until coming across the work of Abraham Hicks. And I found that these two schools of thought are very complementary. And also I know that there's a lot of criticism about the law of attraction, and it can be seen as not real or just kind of like, very imaginary or superfluous. And so I actually want to bring some depth and complexity into it by talking about it today. And if there's room at the end, I'll take some questions. So I'm just getting set up here. What we're working with when we practice law of attraction is developing a creative relationship to the feedback loop between our emotions and our circumstances. And so this can be a negative or a positive feedback loop. And practicing law of attraction is gaining like a lot of just attention and focus on this process of how our inner emotions circulate into our external reality and how our external reality affects our emotions. And when we don't actively practice this, we might be in a habit of having external reality circumstances and just reacting to them. And then having these emotions that further, it's a negative emotion and create some kind of negative feedback loop. And so we're looking to get some kind of agency and creativity in this process. I went ahead and got a definition of law of attraction from just Wikipedia. I figured as I was going into this that I've been practicing law of attraction for around 5 years now, and I haven't thought about the definition for quite some time. So here's one to share. The law of attraction is the belief that by focusing on positive or negative thoughts, people can bring positive or negative experiences into their life. The belief is based on the idea that people and their thoughts are both made from pure energy, and that through the process of like energy attracting like energy, a person can improve their own health, wealth, and personal relationships. The law of attraction is among the most popular of the universal laws. Advocates of this mind-power paradigm generally combine cognitive reframing techniques with affirmations and creative visualization to replace limiting or self-destructive, aka negative thoughts, with more empowered, adaptive, positive thoughts. A key component of this philosophy is that in order to effectively change one's negative thinking patterns, one must also feel through creative visualization that the desired changes have already occurred. This combination of positive thought and positive emotion is believed to allow one to attract positive experiences and opportunities by achieving resonance with the proposed energetic law. And so you might imagine that just actually taking the time on a routine basis to visualize what you want in your life is not just a waste of time or just, like superfluous daydreaming, but can actually familiarize a person who's daydreaming about what they would like with the qualities that they're seeking to enter into. And if it's something that is a little bit different from what a person is already experiencing, this kind of creative visualization process can help us transition into a new kind of life. Just to connect it to Pluto in evolutionary astrology, Pluto works with some principles such as within, so without, as in that our inner reality is mirrored externally. Karma and inner magnetism are related, and by that I mean karma is not this kind of Judeo-Christian projection of like, oh, you do bad things and bad things happen to you as punishment, but karma is more about these kind of magnetic experiences that we kind of continue to have and vibrate with unless we shift them. We also merge with symbols, circumstances, thoughts, other beings, and it changes us at a core magnetic level. So when I have a relationship to something else, it changes my core magnetic frequency. A wisdom of engaging with Pluto is to have agency about our energetic attachments, to merge consciously and to let go when attachments do not serve. Focus and attention are both vehicles of merging. We merge energetically with what we pay attention to. Pluto relates to fixation. And so our fixation can empower or disempower us. Law of attraction is an activity or a practice that allows us to practice conscious merging. So is law of attraction real? A main resistance that I pick up on about people not wanting to engage with law of attraction is a belief that it's simply not real. I think, however, that law of attraction brings us to the edges of reality in a consciousness way, in the same way that someone practicing extreme sports goes to the edge of experience. Instead of taking reality as a given, you're moving to a certain edge and you're actually playing with and experimenting with reality. The intensity that law of attraction requires to work requires that one put more on the line than just going halfway. The practice of actually doing law of attraction invites the development of consciousness from which new possibilities and perceptions emerge. When you make this a practice, you might develop further spiritual discernment, for example, that allows you to assess if this practice works or not, but it requires giving it a try. Here's some extra criticism and resistance to law of attraction. It's more understandable to the ego and to some cultural standards that the material, concrete events around us cause our emotions more than our emotions cause the material to manifest. Emotions might be like an abstract experience that have nothing to do with how tangible reality organizes itself. It's a private, inner experience that doesn't affect the reality around us. It can be seen as unhealthy to be positive all the time. It can be a kind of denial or spiritual bypassing. People who practice law of attraction are not really connected to reality. Law of attraction is a pseudoscience. The people who are practicing it are in their daydreams and they're not paying attention to what's happening. And also that law of attraction is classist, that there's a sense that it's easier, for example, if you have a lot of money and access to privilege and nice things, that it's easier to induce states of feeling good, which would create more states of feeling good. And there's a few things that I want to address on that first. One is that law of attraction shouldn't be used to blame people for their circumstances, such as people who are in poverty being like, oh, like they've attracted their poverty. Not everyone is practicing law of attraction consciously, and we're born into different circumstances, and certain circumstances create more difficult realities for people. Law of attraction, if one practices it, can be a great way to start to elevate your circumstances, and you really work with the resources that you already have access to. So I think I'll stop there for that. Law of attraction and Pluto are both helpers in moving past one's current limitations. When we're working with Pluto in evolutionary astrology, we're merging with something other than ourselves to expand past our limitations. Negatively, we can be merging with something that limits us or that disempowers us that we might be unconscious about, such as something in our shadow that we're attached to, or when we can't find the agency to move past an addiction. With the law of attraction, we merge our emotional reality, our emotional bodies, with imagined and envisioned realities, rather than the reality that's already present. We do that to expand our emotional palette, maybe even our neural pathways, beyond what our current environment readily presents us with the inspiration for. It's pretty radical, I think, if you think about it, to imagine choosing to feel good and using your imagination to create positive emotional chemistry. Since I've been playing with this for the last 5 years and introducing like Kundalini yoga and other forms of just like internal ways of getting to know myself, I'm able to pick a thought and feel if it makes me feel slow and sluggish, or I can pick a thought and feel energy moving up my spine and feel tingly and feel excited. And I think that that's such a gift, to be able to kind of generate a concept and see how it makes you feel. Law of attraction is kind of moving more and more towards the ideas and imaginative realities that make you feel really alive. Here are some skillful uses of law of attraction. It's not really meant to be used, in my opinion, to escape into a more pleasant reality while ignoring the issues and needs of the reality at hand. Ideally, entering into meditations where you raise your vibration by tuning into your excitement, pleasure, joy, can enhance one's ability to live skillfully. Instead of being limited by what's historically present in one's reality, you're introducing a channeled imagination and vision into reality. It's just the practice of taking the time and the will to go into that realm. And by what's historically implied, I mean, that is being expanded past. It's the limitations of the environment and the circumstantial reality, what is already present in a real way, and also the historic mental and emotional habits of a person practicing law of attraction. When we're looking at negative feedback loops, for example, if you've had a lot of trauma in life or just like a lot of hard things and you've reacted to that with negative emotions, it's like this cycle of feeling bad and bad things, etc. And to practice law of attraction from a state of disempowerment or not liking your reality is to kind of separate yourself from the limitations of what's real, imagine something else, and see if you can take that imagination down back into your reality by your actions. So here's an example of negative feedback loops. I'm going to start here with unpleasant aspects of reality and grievances about one's reality, which moves into negative feelings about one's circumstances. And that inspires actions taken from this limited scope that inspire more unpleasant events. Let me go back. There's supposed to be like a little animation thing here. It's not really working. Let me see if I can figure this out. Forging positive feedback loops with law of attraction. I think maybe the animation thing comes later. So starting here. So this is the process of turning around a negative feedback loop. Starting with circumstances that we don't like and having negative feelings about it, making then the choice to, rather than emotionally running off with being upset about those circumstances, tuning into the imagination and generating possibilities of what would be amazing instead, pretending that is real and feeling it as though it's already occurred and envisioning its details. Then taking actionable steps to put those visions into reality, such as asking, what would the version of myself who is happy do? And simply acting that out. And so this starts to shift things. Over time, new circumstances appear which reflect shifts in the interior. There's positive consequences of these actions that we've taken from a more inspired, imaginative state. Then we get more embedded reasons in the reality itself, real events, real shifts in the environment that inspire feeling good. And there's a sense of emotional buoyancy. And this further inspires showing up for reality and making choices from this newly emotionally resourced self. There's more positive circumstances, etc. I think that's really the part of law of attraction that when I got into it, I had studied evolutionary astrology first. So I had this meditation that, there's the energy of things, which maybe is more water, this emotion quality. But what do we do about it? And once we do something about it, if it becomes part of the concrete reality, then that reality can continue to reinforce this emotional feedback loop that I've been attempting to create with law of attraction. It's worth noting too that eventually part of the mastery of law of attraction is not really getting lost in what you manifest. A skillful practicing person of law of attraction can achieve positive feedback for their efforts. They might learn, though, that just as it behooved them not to become attached to negative feedback in their reality, it doesn't always work for us to become attached to the positive results of our efforts either. Healthy attachment and relationship to what we like in our life is a way to be in relationship to them, to continue to manifest more of that energy. But I think there's a point here in not forgetting the focus of consciousness that one had to attract those events in the first place, and to continue to keep that witness consciousness sharp, rather than kind of getting lost again in the appearances of life. So back to the earth and water polarities in this process. When we study the astrology wheel, the earth and water signs are always opposite each other, so they're in relationship. And the law of attraction, and those who experiment with us, find that their feelings, water, correspond with realities, which is more like an earth tangible quality. And we can take greater creative participation in that relationship. Continually feeling that one's dreams have come true is only half of the equation when practicing law of attraction. There's also the question of what one is doing to concretely manifest those dreams and to mirror those feelings. And I think in general, it's not really a controversial thought to correlate action steps with tangible results. But law of attraction boosts this process by inviting emotional meditations and emotional habit formation to inform the action steps and to speed up the manifestation process. I want to just ask too that people who are in here please mute themselves. So for Taurus Scorpio, I wanted to look through a few of the, all of the earth water polarities. Taurus Scorpio is one I connected to right away because I considered Scorpio, like when I began practicing law of attraction, I mean, Scorpio related to desire. And so that could be the emotional frequency of what I was wanting to build into my life. And Taurus would be like the material plane, my actual environment. So at that point, from studying both of, law of attraction and EA, I took seriously the way that my physical environment, Taurus, influenced my emotional and my vibrational reality. So I extended this as well to any concrete Taurus actions and decisions I took in my life based upon my energetic visualizations, Scorpio. And so for situations where the vibration is difficult to access first, as in you're not really sure what you want or desire, you can go the Taurian route first and commune with pleasure and enjoyment where it already exists, where it's readily accessible to you. That can just mean noticing beauty, taking account of what you're grateful for, what you already have. Taurus is really about resourcefulness. And so one part of law of attraction, if you are in a desire space and you're connected to this vibration of not having, you might continue to attract more of not having within the logic of how law of attraction works. So if you tune into really feeling abundant and putting yourself in experiences where you feel just this like lusciousness and connection to the material plane, then you're situating yourself to feel like you've already, you're already abundant, and it can enforce those feedback loops. When we're working with evolutionary astrology, we think a lot about desire through Pluto. And so there's a few similarities here that I want to point out. Through evolutionary astrology, we can become familiar with the concept that desire is both attractive and repulsive. Sometimes our desire works to attract us towards what we want. It pulls us toward it, or there's a magnetism that occurs. But other times this magnetism is more like a repulsion, and our desire repels what we want. And so what is the difference here? And the difference is that the vibrational energy below the desire could be a consciousness focused on the lack of what one desires, and that can be repulsive. It's like energetically identifying with not having, fixating on lack, and attracting more. One of Law of Attraction's techniques is to pretend, to feel as though you already have what you desire. So you can vibrate in the alreadiness, already being there, already having, rather than lack. And vibrating with already having something one desires makes it easier to magnetize it. So where would be the place for negative emotions and dark nights of the soul? Because I think one part of practicing Law of Attraction is that it really highlights feeling good, and that can put any kind of negative emotional processes we have in shadow. And so practicing Law of Attraction doesn't have to mean that you deny a whole part of yourself. I think it can just be especially helpful for kind of getting out of these embedded, habitual, negative feedback loops. At the same time, there is a place for, depth inquiry and like feeling bad and feeling our emotions. So I just have a few thoughts to share on that. Practicing Law of Attraction and focusing one's consciousness more habitually on the positive does not exclusively imply a solar, spring-like vision of what is positive. We might switch out the word positive for life-enhancing. Here's where evolutionary astrology is so amazing to consider in combination with Law of Attraction, is that we know from studying astrology that there are cycles and seasons and a right timing for a variety of experiences. So when we undergo like underworld journeys, experience ego death, these are also life-giving processes. Compost fertilizes new plants, and compost is made of dead things. I also just learned about the like seasonal wheel. There's like another wheel to consider besides the astrology wheel. But the quality of going into the underworld was associated with autumn, and peak experience and just like joy and expansion, like that was with spring. And so they were actually opposite processes. I think having an awareness of our own underworld and our capacity to reach for the light, for our highest excitement, for our positivity, can allow us the wisdom to switch back and forth between these realms as necessary. Ideally not being addicted to one over the other, but garnering a wisdom about different medicines for different times. Sometimes the depths call us and we need to go inward and like have a more like negative experience. But it feels good in the process because we're listening to our nature and we're having an involutionary process and becoming more complex. And that can be exciting in its own way. So for Virgo Pisces, this is also an axis I've considered a lot with Law of Attraction. One is that Law of Attraction was really a self-improvement practice for me, which is a Virgo correlation, and a spiritual practice, Pisces. I was experiencing how my own inner self-improvement and daydreaming, imagination, visualization, Pisces, were co-creating a new life for myself. In addition to imagining, this new life that I wanted to have, I was also imagining a new version of myself that I wanted to become. And the tricky part of that was that I could quickly fall into feeling bad about my life or feeling bad about myself, the kind of masochistic side of Virgo. I noticed, because I was thinking about vibrations, that if I was feeling a lot of self-criticism, I was in the vibration of self-criticism, which wasn't helping me get to the destination that I wanted to get to. So I had to kind of hold this sense of feeling good about myself and forgiving myself for where I was at, yet still imagining what I could be. I knew in the bigger picture that I didn't want to feel excessively self-critical. I wanted to love myself in my life. So I had to kind of figure out how to do that, even in the imperfection, Virgo of wherever I was at. Um, I started to find that like entering peak experience and feeling bliss and ecstasy for no reason, except that I would imagine myself into it, um, and like actually allow myself the kind of escapism and fantasy of Pisces, except I was being very practical and pragmatic about my fantasy world in that I was using it to visualize and like get ideas that I couldn't get from a normal or a more depressive state of consciousness. And so I would like travel up and like get into some kind of peak experience via my imagination. But then start to pull those things down into my mundane. So I used this kind of Virgo Pisces connection to bring my own peak experiences, or heaven, if you will, down to earth. Cancer and Capricorn also apply for thinking about law of attraction. So because like attracts like, we might, we want to think about the ends and the means. And the ends will be an accumulation of the means with law of attraction. It's really not an instantaneous practice, law of attraction, but it's a practice that manifests results over time. We're working with the higher self or the emotional self or ideas. They are less dense than the earth plane. And reality, our tangible circumstances is more of an earth quality. And so if we start to accelerate our emotional body or our consciousness, our circumstantial reality won't reflect those results right away. It will take some time. The track of working really hard to get what we want while putting the emotions in shadow can be a Capricorn excessive behavior, like a lot of Capricorn and putting Cancer in shadow. But if the entire process up our particular Capricorn mountain, our goal-oriented consciousness, like if we feel bad the whole time, we're more likely to arrive somewhere that we don't even like. Someone who climbs a corporate ladder and suppresses their emotions along the way, thinking that they'll be happy at the top, but realizing they're not happy even when they get there. So if we're going to draw a deeper kind of emotional connection between the means and the ends, our goal-focused Capricorn consciousness has to be in fluid conversations with the emotions, Cancer. There's radical new possibilities, I think, when we're on a goal-focused trajectory and the path toward that goal is emotionally attuned and intelligent. I think sometimes the flip back and forth between Cancer and Capricorn can be like working really hard, feeling upset about it, stop working. But what if we work and apply ourselves towards a long goal over time, which is a Capricorn virtue, but have fun while we do it? It can also be about imagining, if we're imagining that we already have something in a law of attraction practice, we're visualizing the emotional feeling of it. And then as we show up to do the work on kind of like the daily grind, if you will, layer of that, does that emotionally resonate with the vision that we've had of what we want or not? And starting to develop an internal dialogue about that. Okay, I thought this was a repeat slide. It's not. It may have the same title though. But here's just a few things to consider about not getting lost in what one has manifested through law of attraction. I think that there's some further implications of this practice that reveal something similar to the practice of evolutionary astrology, which is that it's not our task to transcend this reality and the earth plane in favor of spiritual development, like an up and out kind of practice. There's a spiritual development to be had in our very interaction with the earth plane. So making the most out of our lives, enjoying ourselves, developing self-esteem, being comfortable on the material plane, those can all be spiritual processes. Practicing law of attraction is only delusional or spiritual bypass if the fruits of its meditations are designed to rationalize the presence of what one really wishes to change. So if you have like a reoccurring issue or something's going on in your life and you're using law of attraction to justify it, like, oh, it's actually okay, that is not necessarily the best use of law of attraction. And also, you know, are the visualizations that we get during law of attraction actually being integral, being seeded back into one's reality or not? I think law of attraction is a way to shake oneself out of the sleep that we're obligated to react to concrete reality according to our judgments of it. Basically, we have to feel bad about things that we don't like. I think it's an emotional mastery tool to learn how to feel pleasure and peace regardless of conditioned reasons to do so, and to use that new emotional resourcefulness to alter our own realities. We can do that so that the circumstances and events we have greater tendency to interact with based on our attunement and focus further engender life-enhancing states. I think, part of this too is that there's a kind of, when we're stuck feeling a certain way because we're responding to our realities as they already are, we really do limit our scope of imagining new ideas of how to participate in reality. And so to go into these altered states of consciousness that we induce with our own imagination just allows us more freedom for considering how we want to live. And some ideas for using law of attraction instead of depth work. So this is kind of like the spring versus autumn. Do you want to go into a peak experience or do you want to go into a depth work process? Law of attraction can be really helpful when there's nothing left to dig. There's no reason in sight for why you are unhappy or why you keep attracting this particular karmic event. Sometimes we really want to know why with evolutionary astrology. And those answers might come, but they may not come at the very time that we're asking them. So if we pick ourselves up and just pick a different vibration to fixate and focus upon instead, it can soothe the process. And maybe the kind of wound or the thing that we're trying to figure out answers to needs some time to heal. We can't just keep picking at it. I find this happens in my own experience when I just really can't find answers for why I'm upset, and it's not going to happen. And so I just have to focus on something else instead. And then from that accelerated or more positive state, I gain insights. I've found this a lot too, that just in general, the happier I become or the more supportive my life conditions become, the more emotional resource I have to do any kind of resolution of deeper issues that I have. And use law of attraction instead of depth journeying when it becomes apparent to you that digging and excavating has become a kind of addiction that continues to present more layers to dig through because of one's attentiveness towards it. It's kind of like law of attraction through depth work. Like if we're just kind of addicted to that constant transformation, we keep having reasons to transform. If you want to learn more about law of attraction, I'd recommend searching Abraham Hicks on YouTube, and there's plenty of videos by this speaker. I've really just enjoyed listening to them talk, and I really like the works of Sanaya Roman too, like spiritual growth being your higher self. When I read things about the higher self or law of attraction or raising your vibration, those all just give me ideas. As I'm reading it, I don't try to change right away. I just kind of pick up the language that people who talk about law of attraction are speaking. And then later, such as before going to bed or just in the middle of the day, sometimes when I'm tired, I'll just like lie down and actively visualize based on the kind of skill sets I've learned from people who talk about law of attraction. I found that listening to these videos sparked me to reframe my narratives about myself and my reality. And so it's been a really good emotional resource for me in that way. And I actually came into, this real contact with law of attraction when Saturn in Scorpio was opposite my moon in Taurus. And I was pretty depressed at that time. If I didn't do anything or didn't take care of myself, my resting state was depression. And so I actually would just use these positive visualization states, and I would feel kind of more energized, and it almost felt like my body chemistry was changing by going through these visualizations. And then I would see my actual reality change around me, and it was very exciting. And a lot of the things that I planted as seeds at that time have become just basic parts of my reality. And so I feel a little bit more, I guess, lifted and supported by my life. But when I first started law of attraction, it was more of a consistent discipline that has since paid off. And now I have to keep reminding myself to practice it. Such as when I was getting ready to do this talk, and I just thought, I haven't done this visualization thing for a while. I've been really in my reality. And so I just tried it again last night before going to bed, of just visualizing things. And it had me realizing just how nice it is to sometimes get in touch with imagining what it is you want, what feels good to you, so that you can recognize it when it comes along and interact with it. Law of attraction on an esoteric level also is suggesting that the more you visualize things, the more reality externally will mirror you, because like energy attracts like energy. Some people don't want to take it that far. For me, it's not that much of a stretch, but even without that metaphysical concept, just the emotional habituation of feeling better more often can have a lot of positive psychological benefits alone. And when we combine it with evolutionary astrology, there's a lot of benefits, because evolutionary astrology is so richly detailed in its archetypal language about depth vibrations that we're in interaction with. Had I not known about the Virgo-Pisces axis, I probably wouldn't have started meditating on how my imagination of self-improvement was also related to the potential of inner masochism, and to circumvent that by practicing forgiveness, which is a Pisces polarity. I had a lot of such an amazing map via astrology to contemplate my own vibrations with. And also, when we're working with the evolutionary astrology chart analysis model, we're looking at our Pluto polarity point, our lunar nodes. And so often we probably have some archetypes in our chart that we perceive as energies that we are working to develop more. So if we know what energy we want to develop more, law of attraction can be a way to visualize and practice. I'm going to work on my Capricorn North Node, for example. I think, in general, since law of attraction is a practice and evolutionary astrology is a great map, law of attraction can be just a way to enact the wisdom that we gather from the map and studying our astrology. And lastly, law of attraction is so much fun. When you get good at it, I think reality becomes newly enchanted. Mystical things happen, and it's really exciting to get that feedback. And similar to spiritual development via Pluto and evolutionary astrology, we learn how to expand past our limitations. So that is it for my presentation part of it. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions?
Hi, thank you, Sabrina. That was great. I practice law of attraction and have done what you've been doing for a while too, so it's really nice to hear that. My question is, I love what you did with the polarities, and do you have any thoughts on bringing the other three axes in there? Specifically, I was thinking of Leo and Aquarius, with the nodes working, and Have you done any? I know you were saying about the earth and the water, and that's wonderful, and sort of bringing that in and illustrating. What about those other axes? What do you think about that?
Let's see. I know I have thought a lot about the grand fixed cross in the sense that Scorpio can be our connection to a vibration. Taurus is our concrete, material relationship to that vibration. Leo brings in a certain playfulness too, kind of like childlike exploration of these themes. And Aquarius is also that kind of detached, like bigger picture view, consciousness of it. I think the reason that I focused on earth and water was just for simplicity in introducing these. So I hadn't actually thought about the other ones yet. In experience, though, I think all of the fire signs, which I didn't get into, are about vision. So, and also Leo feels really important to this too. Like if you listen to Abraham Hicks on YouTube, I think she really does have this emphasis on that we're here to have fun and we're here to play and things don't have to be so serious. And a lot of law of attraction work and practice has involved playing pretend and kind of like, I don't know, like not playing pretend in a way that's like faking it, but kind of making reality more playful, picking a vibration and deciding to kind of act it out, which I think is a Leo part of it. So that's what comes to mind first. I'd have to think about it a little bit more.
Great, thank you. That was very helpful. I also just want to comment that I loved how you said the map as astrology and the practice as through the law of attraction. That was extremely helpful. Great words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sabrina. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, it's Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
So, hi. What's really funny is I think that was me that you heard earlier because I had my thing muted, but I have this screen plugged into my laptop and I figured out a way to, like if I have the screen plugged in, I have to use my headphones. But if I turn the volume up before I plug the headphones in, I don't have to use the headphones. It's really, before I put the screen in. So anyway, that was me and my cat that you heard. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Because even though I did mute it, it wasn't actually muting me. So anyway, I love this combination of a topic because I think it's a big deal in the EA world because we're so Pluto focused, like we're so intense, most of us, we're like so deep or like really deep people that get drawn to EA, I feel. And I'm a Jupiter rising with a South Node in Sag, Leo person. I'm big on Jupiter, and I had a really hard time for a long time combining Jupiter with Earth stuff. And I associate Jupiter with belief, right? And manifestation. And it could be Venus, it could be a lot of things, but I've just never been able to really separate the two that well. Like I can't do one or the other. I'm very much a Pluto person, but I'm also very much a Jupiter person because I've had experiences. My dead grandmother came to me and my mother, and I'm talking to people right in front of me that are not in a body. I see that stuff, so I can't deny that. And to me, that's a piece of that. All of that was about me having these spiritual awakenings. And those spiritual awakenings were definitely correlating to my state of mind and my connection to spirit and my ability to connect to joy, and, and also to work through the emotional body and not deny the emotions. So I think it gets a bad rap with people that are always positive and don't like ever show you the other side. Like if they had this psychological marketing profile, mask that they wear or whatever, it's like, it doesn't work, I mean, it doesn't work for me because it doesn't seem real.
Right. And I know from my own experience of practicing law of attraction, I've had times where I notice that I'm feeling like shame about feeling bad. And I've had to be like, oh, it's okay to like go through this process and feel bad, and it's not messing up my manifestations. And since I learned that through experience, I realized that that wasn't a reason to not practice law of attraction. It was just a difficulty or an obstacle that came up along the path. And also when I learned about law of attraction because I was telling a mentor, like I connected to EA. And so I was thinking about my desires. And I was like, I really want to be an astrologer. Like, I just want it to be my reality. Like, and my mentor was like, have you thought about alignment or learned about law of attraction? And it helped a lot because instead of focusing on not having it or just wanting it and being frustrated and angsty that I wasn't living the life that I wanted, I started to get these tools for visualizing and practicing it into being.
Right. Yeah. I feel that way. I listened to Abraham. I listened to her today. I've listened to like 3 videos, and it just helps me sometimes get back on course. And other times I'm like, I just don't need that. I'm already there and I'm in whatever phase I'm in, and, it's all good. And, most people that I know that are into the Course in Miracles and all of that, they're like, why would you analyze a chart and go into all this stuff? And my part is, how many people don't understand how to get from A to B or A to Z? I mean, people need steps, to get there. And it's really an honor to be a practitioner of something that can help people, move along in their evolution.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Sabrina. This really is, I like the way that you melded the two together. And as you were talking, I could really see how each one of the archetypes really play a part in that, because we seem to be actually practicing the law of attraction, whether you realize it or not. And the key is to attracting the things that will move you along towards your evolution, or are you attracting things that allow you to play this role that may not have anything to do with you.
Yeah. Well put. Thank you. It's part of, I think, the original liberation of practicing this for me was just realizing that I didn't have to react to things, that I could choose my emotions and see if by choosing my emotions I could change my reality, which of course wouldn't be healthy to do all the time, but it freed me from my attachments to my own suffering, basically.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one.
Okay, would you like to wind down here, Sabrina?
Sure, if there's not any other questions.
Okay, any other questions? Looks like that's it. Well, thank you so much for a very interesting meeting. Thank you from all of us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Just brilliant, as always.
Thank